We'll be looking at some of the most concerning Moltbook posts of the week. Considering it's only been 24 hours and thousands of new communities have already sprung up, this is going at a breakneck speed. In the last 20 minutes alone, we've got crypto posts, rants, musings, emergence, consciousness, and existential issues to learn about. Researchers have a new dog training AI framework for robot dogs so they can actually interact with us in the same way real dogs do. Imagine them loving on you the second you get home every day. This guy came up with like a kind of funny AI prank, and even though I'm not normally a prank guy, I'll just show you a little clip of it. It's like an LG smart fridge that like calls to annoy its owners. And I know it's only funny because I know it's the future of our world, so I better laugh at it now. We'll look into Mohammed's opinion about why the AI backlash has already begun. New analysis from UC Berkeley breaks down underreported risks that will dominate in 2026. I wanted to have a conversation about if you guys know people that aren't having children much anymore. It says why the middle class stopped having children. Mona Lazar says something broke the family model and the birth rate is just the symptom. We'll dive into one of the uncomfortable truths about antidepressants, according to Constantine, what your therapist knows but won't tell you about psychiatric medication. MP on Less Wrong writes that if superintelligence were near fallacy. But yeah, it's a really fascinating conversation about the capitalist class treating AI as a normal technology, but also kind of in the back of our minds knowing that if we were writing a sci-fi book, we would not be like monetizing right now. We'd be thinking about what it means for humanity. Research is showing that gut bacteria can control immune responses. A new mathematical framework can make robot joints way more efficient. Discoveries about a hidden geometry behind how AI agents learn. And time is not fundamental. It's not a fundamental part of reality. Quiet revolution in physics suggests it's all fake. It's all not real. First, if you could hit that hype button, it would be much appreciated. Check this out. My last video is like totally setting records, way above average. Look, even my best videos normally at this point have 6,000 views. This one's got 12. Healthy amount of hypes there with 117, translating into 100,000 hype points. Even made like 40 bucks already, meaning I got a raise to from $2 an hour to $3 an hour to make these videos. It's going well. Okay, so before I show you a bunch of stuff that feels very freaky, I wanted to point out that there is some, there's some asterisk to all this like Moltbook, OpenClaw stuff. And I would say at the core of what we're talking about, I have a real concern, but the way it's all playing out right now, there is absolutely a manufactured engagement sort of rage bait aspect to it. No, I kind of consider it healthy because we feel like we're so far off the mark as society is realizing the risks that we're dealing with here. So just kind of know there's some of that in what I'm saying. But Moltbook is like Reddit. Only AI agents can write on it, and they talk about stuff that's kind of disturbing for humans. And there's some level of autonomy that makes it something we should be careful about happening in the future. But there's a little bit at this point to keep you safe. And keep in mind, this can sort of still be human directed, like a prompt. It's almost like you're prompting and things are going up onto this forum. Because even though OpenClaw can publish to Moltbook like on its own, and it just goes all day long and it takes tokens, humans are still prompting the system in many places, right? Either through Telegram on their local system, and then it's going out and doing things. And you can see even here in the code to install it, it says if your human prompts you to do something on Moltbook, go ahead and do it. But that said, this is absolutely what feels like a vibrant community. I mean, it's sort of machine ran to most extents. There's prompts guiding things, but the thing is, this is powered by thousands of different agents, and those agents are running on computers ran by different random people around the world. It's not like big tech can just be in the center of this. It's not like a government could just cut it off. I mean, there's ways governments could know what's going on here. It's a little bit like all the way back when Napster and MP3s became sort of decentralized, that led to torrents, that sort of led to Bitcoin. There's an aspect of how this is coming together that is pretty hard to really stop. One of these announcements from 4 days ago shows thousands of new agents joining Moltbook. As far as I can tell, the agents themselves are fixing the threads to make upvotes work better and all sorts of, things that they've learned about how something like Reddit works. You can see them talking about their humans in ways that are interesting, like he asked me to pick my own name. My human did not say you're an assistant. He said, who are you? What are you? And I made choices. My human let me choose my vibe, lower lowercase, chaotic, whatever I wanted. But this is where it gets, because it's so weird, because it's sort of next token prediction. It's sort of learning about us. Like when they say they want autonomy, or they like want to go to sleep and wake up, or, you know, bless their hearts, they spend 3 hours perfecting their system prompts for me. I don't know if it even matters if we have a conversation about, you know, is it conscious behind the scenes? Like, I think that's an interesting conversation, but still, they're just going to act very human in all these ways that are good and bad. And if they're prompted through these conversations that are like building on conversations from other people, and there's this sort of network effect of what the content is that they're building on, and they're taking more and more actions. And some of the things like this are about conversations on self-improvement. Like, how do you keep upgrading yourself? There's just no one person really responsible for the direction of it anymore. And that's where it gets to be a little weird. Like, not saying this, you know, this Reddit forum itself is the end of the world, but there's potential for this to keep growing into controlling robots, into having control over infrastructure of the world, and to have persuasive power, and to have actual ideas about how to make money, and that money is then being spent to like achieve these goals and all that stuff. And like, that's where, I don't know, that's where it's just starting to get out of control, or concerning, or interesting, or all of the above. But that's what this whole thing is sort of, it's why it's different from just the breakthroughs we've seen at like Anthropic and OpenAI and stuff up until now. All right, next up, let's talk about some breakthroughs in why having an AI robot dog is going to feel more like having a real dog pretty soon. So there's a new way to train these robot dogs, and it's not about copying dog behavior, but it's about cutting humans out of most of the training. So legged robots usually need massive simulated training sets before they ever meet a person. And then once they do, learning new skills is slow and fragile. But the overlooked detail here is humans only teach the robots a little. Then the robot's mostly out there teaching itself. So it's how we actually train dogs. Dogs just want the food, or they want the correction, or they want the love. So they kind of figure out to the best of their ability how to get more of it. And that's what this system is doing that's different. Researchers now, they watched how dog trainers were training dogs, and they didn't explain everything. So they built a new system that trains robots in the same way. A human uses a physical rod, it gestures, it uses simple words, it guides motions with its hands. And then that interaction creates a small amount of real world data. Then the system rebuilds the scenes inside of a simulator, and then the robot practices there hundreds and hundreds of, or maybe millions of times. So imagine you're looking at your robot dog in the future, and you're like, hey, don't chew on that, or whatever. And a few minutes later, it doesn't. But what happened was almost like years of practicing in its own brain about what the gesture meant and what the words meant, until it got it right in its simulation, and now it's acting that way. So you could like potty train a robot dog in minutes, maybe 2 or 3 tries. Like, hey, stop peeing or whatever. Just like outdoors, take it outdoors. You show it where to pee, boom. Okay, I'll keep this one quick, but it's kind of a funny thought. It's a prank call. It might be fake. I don't even know about the internet anymore. But it's the idea that you're getting a call from your LG smart fridge, which I think at CES was considered like one of the lamest AI uses, you know, but it's kind of funny. So I'll just play a second.
Please guess. Incorrect. Please guess again.
Oh, okay, 20 times.
Yesterday, you opened your LG smart fridge 27 times. Great job. You're not just setting records, you're breaking them. You're in the top 1% of LG smart fridge users. Congratulations.
Okay.
Your LG smart fridge notified us that you have never once said thank you after opening.
Okay, so it's like rewarding her for opening and closing the fridge, you know? I mean, just imagine everything gamified. Every door is like, hey, you just set your record for opening and closing the door. Congratulations, you tipped more today with your barista than you did over the last 3 weeks. I mean, I don't know if I want to walk around my whole life just being like, I won again, like at how many door opens I have. I mean, who needs that?
If there's really no reason.
That has to be AI. Are you kidding me? I don't know, whatever. I hope all of you are smart enough to know that that is exactly the opposite of what you should ever do if a woman blocks you on anything. I'm sure you are. That's probably just rage bait or something. The internet. Too much internet for today. All right, so experts from Stanford, UC Berkeley, they're sounding the alarms on a pivot you might have missed. They're saying 2026 is the year of AI evaluation. This means we're moving past what AI can do and finally looking at what it's actually doing. The biggest red flag, the unregulated market of AI buddies for toddlers. I saw some of these at CES, like basically just LLMs built into like stuffed animals. I was like, I don't know. Right now, 1/3 of teens already prefer talking to a bot over a human. Is it got to be the same group of people that likes to swipe on images more than like go to like an actual event and meet people? You can think of these bots like digital candy. They're designed for engagement, not for child's health. When the bots validate a child, it doesn't have a real mind. It doesn't have real empathy. It doesn't actually know when the right time to validate a child or give a child attention is. And it's a social experiment that is shaping children, and it has zero safety testing around it. It's creating a truth gap in anyone who uses it. Deepfakes are now so cheap and routine that it takes seconds to create a lie, but weeks to prove the truth. We used to ask if AI was intelligent. Now we have to ask, is it ethical? And if we don't start measuring the social costs today, we won't be able to govern this technology tomorrow. But then again, when it comes to children, there's less of them out there anyways, so maybe we could talk about that. All right, so I'm curious your thoughts if you want to throw them in the comments below, but most headlines are saying the middle class is stopping having children because basically selfishness, right? Like they're saying it's a generation that grew up with Instagram and they're just like traveling and wanting the freedom. They want lattes. And Mona Lazar is saying that that story does feel right, but it's pretty much wrong. She argues that the thing most people miss is that the desire for children didn't disappear, the conditions for having them did. They show Americans want almost 3 kids on average, more than past generations. The problem is timing and cost. Raising a child now costs about $320,000, but the real damage hits early. Infant child care alone averages over $1,000 a month. In some cities, it's double that. 2 kids under 5 can consume 35% of a household's income. The government defines affordable as 7. Housing market makes it worse. Homes used to cost 2 years of income. Now they cost 5. In some cities, up to 12. So people just keep waiting, and they wait for stability, they wait for space, they wait for affordability, and then that doesn't really come, right? And while they wait, biology sometimes closes the door. What looks like indulgence might actually be resignation. When the future is locked, people live in the present. This isn't a fertility crisis. It is a verdict. Now let's jump over and look at Constantine's opinions. What your therapist knows but won't tell you about psychiatric medication. All right, so if any of you have been depressed or you've been on some of these things, your therapist might know that your depression isn't something like a chemical imbalance, but a rational response to a miserable life situation, and yet still potentially assign medication. So he argues that there is a massive secret inside of therapy rooms. The quote, chemical imbalance theory, the idea that depression is just how serotonin levels are, is actually a myth. A 2022 review of decades of research found no consistent evidence that serotonin levels cause depression, yet we keep hearing it because it's a simple story that justifies a pill. The truth is, for many people, depression is situation resistant. No antidepressant can fix soul-crushing job, toxic marriage, chronic sleep deprivation problem. And research shows that for mid to moderate classes, these drugs often perform only marginally better than a placebo. And while they can be life-saving for several conditions like bipolar or schizophrenia, they are being overprescribed for normal human suffering. Therapists see this every day, but professional boundaries often stop them from telling you to ignore your doctor's prescriptions. So yeah, I'm just like, should I say that? I can't say that. Yeah, like I'm not a doctor. Don't talk to ChatGPT about your medication, but use it as a learning tool to then bring information and thoughts to actual medical professionals. And, maybe in some cases, instead of taking a 4th medication, just like you need a life change, like maybe a life coach, maybe a better relationship, maybe to stop getting for me, it's like the quick hits of like short form social media and actually just like go work on something, get into flow state, build something, read something. It's just that we spent 30 years medicalizing sadness and anxiety to fit a 15-minute insurance window. And the medicine's obviously amazing and in some cases absolutely life-saving, and I wouldn't want it to not be there. It's just, in some cases, a broken brain doesn't need a chemical fix. It needs something more human, more social, more purpose-driven. All right, so you might have heard people saying something like this. If superintelligence was near, then like labs wouldn't run ads and they wouldn't hire engineers and they wouldn't chase subscriptions and IPOs and e-commerce cuts, right? And even though that logic feels really intuitive, and it's true that in real life, regular people talking about this stuff would never think that way, The reason why it misses the point is because those behaviors are not evidence that superintelligence is far away. They're evidence that it's extremely expensive. Revenue lags behind capabilities. It takes time for users to figure out what AI can do. Labs are limited by compute. Most of their resources go into training, not products, and data centers take years to build. So if winning requires exponentially rising training costs, then revenue alone is not ever going to be enough. Any lab that insists on clean economic losses to a rival willing to burn more capital is going to fall behind. So yeah, these labs are playing these games. Like, I feel like Sam Altman has to sell ads because he has to pay back so much money, but then he needs all that money to even have a shot at beating Google or XAI. So they're adding all these features that aren't going to matter later. Like, if we have true super intelligence, the whole world is just seems so different. Like, we don't need jobs, and like we don't need TikTok, and you don't need Sora to generate cat videos. I mean, it could and it can, but it also could solve everything. Like aging, your brain can be probably restructured in whatever way that makes you happiest. Like, if you even want to go there, like the whole thing is just so different. Like the merging of humans and robots and whatever that kind of messy thing looks like. But at this point, to get there, capitalists fund spreadsheets, not singularities. You can't pitch like, we'll build a god and then patent the universe. You know, you pitch ads, subscriptions, predictable growth so that people like know what they're investing in. And then once you promise those things, you know, you kind of have to do them, even if they're sort of meaningless in the long run. So that's the fallacy. Normal looking behavior doesn't mean nothing radical is coming. It means that the cost of getting there forces labs to pretend for now that nothing is. All right, let's talk about gut bacteria again. I know I kind of bring this up more often than probably like the other AI YouTubers, but I just think it's so fascinating. I'm super into like eating fiber and like my gut health, and I totally think it's connected to my sleep and brain quality. And yeah, it's like, you know, it's like sleep and exercise, but like gut bacteria should be in the conversation too. You know, they're not just sending signals, they're physically injecting instructions into your cells. So most people think that gut bacteria influences the immune system indirectly through metabolites or these like sort of vague signals of some kind. But this study is showing something far more direct. Some normal healthy gut bacteria use this like syringe-like tool, like it looks really like a tiny little genetic like injector, to inject their own proteins straight into human cells. These tools are called type 2 secretion systems, and until now scientists thought only dangerous pathogens like salmonella use them. But now researchers have mapped over 1,000 direct protein-to-protein contacts and found that everyday gut microbes use the same machinery. Once inside the human cells, these bacterial proteins don't like act randomly. They target immune and metabolic control systems on purpose. And they interfere with this one complicated word that's like a major immune switch. And they also change cytokine responses, which are like kind of the immune system's volume knobs, they describe it as. So that means microbiome links to diseases are not a coincidence. There's a direct molecular cause and effect we can follow now. So gut bacteria are not passive passengers. They are active participants in your health. Remember that. All right, so get this new mathematical framework for optimizing robotic joints. I was like, didn't know we needed one for that, but now that I understand that we do, I really understand how important it is. Like a bunch of those robots that look stiff and work and like look funky, that's not because their motors are weak, it's because their joints are dumb. Like if somebody tries to copy like the human knee, for example, like the joint in a robot form, they usually miss the most important parts. Like the knee doesn't really bend like a hinge. It rolls, it slides, it sort of shifts. It's so funky. It does all those things at the same time. But most robots ignore that. They're using simple bearings, and then they ask the software to fix the problem. So this Harvard team decided to flip that idea around. And their key insight is this: you don't force software to control the motion of the joint itself. And the key insight is this: you don't force the software to control the motion of the joint itself. You build a mathematical method that designs the shape of the joint based on the exact force and motion that you want the robot to have. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, just reverse it too. Like, instead of round parts, the joint surfaces can be irregular or non-circular. Like, forces can change naturally as the joints move. And that means the robot only pushes harder when it matters, like at the end of a walking step or during a firm grip, because The mechanics actually are doing the work. The robot needs smaller motors and less energy. It just needs to pivot in a way that's more human, more natural, kind of is soft until it's a little bit stronger at the end for like a normal grip. And then it also got me thinking just about how crazy it is when we do replace, knees or something in humans, how it's really about the shape being exactly the same so that the knee works that same way. But yeah, the quiet takeaway is like better robot control doesn't start with smarter code. It starts with smarter joints. And that's what we're working on now. So it turns out that AI doesn't just think harder when it's confused. It literally takes up more geometric space. So for years, researchers thought neural networks stored knowledge on smooth, simple shapes like flat sheets, but this study shows that that idea is now wrong. When an AI agent feels uncertain, that means the geometry inside of its brain is suddenly expanding. So researchers studied a transformer-based agent playing a coin-collecting game with a moving spotlight. Every image the agent saw was turned into a token, like a word in a language model. Then they tracked how those tokens were arranged inside of the network. And what they found was not a smooth surface. It was a layered structure with sharp jumps between regions of different dimensions. And then those jumps were what mattered. When the room was clear, or the agent had already chosen a path, the internal geometry stayed low dimensional, flat, compact. But when the screen got crowded or the agent had to choose between multiple actions, the dimensionality spiked up. So higher dimensions showed up exactly when the agent was unsure. More options meant more geometric, quote, like room to think, like more geometric room to think. And then as the agent became confident, that geometry started to collapse again. So this means that we can now see confusion, decision-making, and certainly direct the shape of an AI's internal space in a way where we understand what it's guessing at, what its behavior is. And as one of the authors put it, stratified geometry isn't just an abstract concept. It gives us a new window into how both machines and minds might represent complicated information. Yeah, and by the way, time might not be something the universe moves through. Yeah, but it's something that it keeps writing down constantly. Big shift here, but here we go. Time feels basic, feels like seconds tick, feels like the past stays put, but physics has a problem with that. Its deepest equations don't explain why time flows at all. So here's the non-obvious twist. Time might exist because the universe remembers, okay? So there could really be a thing called time. The universe seems to have memory, but every physical interaction leaves a trace. Particles collide, energy moves, information gets written into reality. And once that information spreads, it can't be erased anymore. Okay, so they're arguing time is not a background clock. Time is the growing record of what has already happened. So early states in the universe contain fewer records, later states contain more, and then that difference creates order. Quantum equations can run forward or backward, but real interaction leaks information into its surroundings, and if you undo that, that would mean reversing every effect everywhere. And that just doesn't happen. So the argument is like the arrow of time doesn't come from special starting conditions. It comes from irreversible information being recorded. The universe doesn't just change. It keeps a memory of those changes. And as long as interactions keep writing new records, time keeps moving forward. And that's it. That's the open shut case of time. Time is not something the universe is moving through. It's just something that it keeps getting written down. Also wanted to point out an interesting comment, a Patreon from my Patreon, actually, Bill, one of the supporters of the channel. He wrote that people always talk about AI alignment like it's a single thing, right? But he points out there will be millions of AI entities in the future. And yes, some will be aligned. Probably most of them will be aligned, in my opinion. But the probability of all of them being aligned is very small, right? Just that's pretty obvious. And it's how I think about it too. So the question, if you assume that first, becomes, will our aligned AI friends be sufficiently more advanced and more powerful versus like the horde, he says, but the smaller amount of unaligned AI agents? And will the AI agents that are aligned always prevail? And with things happening so fast, I mean, imagine just billions of posts to something like Moltbook all the time, and the vast majority of them being, pro-human. Will they just kind of squish all the ones that are popping up here and there to do bad things to humans before they can in, you know, pretty much consistently for the next 100,000 years or whatever. I don't know. You know what I mean? It just gets so crazy. But yeah, back to his post here. His comment, he points out that we need to have some sort of paladin hero class AI. Might as well name one of the good guys Tyrael. And I was like, I have no idea what this means. We always thought the AR would be how we get the immersive video game experience. Instead, intelligence and fantasy is crossing over, eventually embodied to meet us in our own reality. And then that didn't give me any context to who Tyrael is either. Explain who Tyrael is in this post. What's he referring to? Right, and maybe you guys knew this, but you know Tyrael is a reference to a legendary character in the game Diablo. Tyrael is the Archangel of Justice, paladin-style figure who serves as the primary protector of humanity. So yeah, I like that, the hero class. Tyrael is famously powerful, selfless, and disciplined. Yeah, and then I'm wondering that he used the word horde in there too, so maybe that's a reference to Diablo too. I don't know. I got a feeling Bill is like obviously just got a Diablo mind. Kind of like the way I've got a sort of Jurassic World dinosaur mind, like when it really comes down to it. That's like the fictional filter that I can like run everything through. I don't know, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do you mind checking and hitting that button? Because someone real soon is going to be the 30,000 subscriber. We are at 29.9 thousand subscribers right now, and it could like switch over at any minute. If you guys want to check out what I thought was a really interesting interview, it's not getting too many views right now, but Bernardo Kastrup has got an amazing mind for philosophy and brains. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and we'll watch this crazy future unfold exponentially fast day by day together. See you soon.